So welcome back. So tonight we have a 3-in-1 show, and the question we're asking two of the guests is, how will this electoral map change? It looks blue in the middle, green around it. Green is NDC, blue is MPP. I'll start the inquest with the General Secretary of the largest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, Fifi Kwete, who's joining me tonight. As I say, later on, I'll speak to Kwabena J. Japon from the MPP, and Charles Abani is the UN resident rep in Ghana. He will speak to us as well. So, Fifi, thanks for joining us on The Point of View.
Thank you, Ben.
Good evening. How are you?
It's always a pleasure seeing you and opportunity to have a chat with you and all your many viewers.
3 days to election. You look fresh and relaxed. That's concerning. Are you not campaigning? You should be tired and sweating. Are you looking cool?
I know, right? A lot of work has gone on. Let me just say that maybe the energy is the energy of positivity and what it is we feel coming from the people of Ghana gives us room to believe that Ghana is poised for change.
Every election, politicians say they are winning. So if I ask you, say you are winning, how different is 2024 from the previous elections you've been part of?
All right, let's say it this way, that naturally you go into every contest with the belief that you do your best, and your best would yield the expected outcome, which is victory. But of course, there are some contests that are particularly more difficult. So, for example, moving into 2020, we knew there was a possibility of winning, but that was a much tougher contest because, you know, in Ghana, when you have just a 4-year in government, I mean, the country tends to be a little more patient. They believe you've barely been given an opportunity. So let us see exactly what you could do with a second opportunity so that there will be room to say whether you have done or not done. So naturally, first terms are much more difficult. So really, that was a long shot in 2020. But by 2024, it's a different ballgame. The country has had opportunity to view the NPP in 8 years. They've had opportunity to see the massive resources that have been available to the government in the period of 8 years, and had a way to compare what the situation was economically with what it is today, what the reality today is regarding so many vital things like unemployment, the suffering of the people, the development that has been achieved, and all that. So we believe, relatively, compared to 2020, this election is one that our chances are better. The mood of the country also speaks to change, but of course you don't take anything for granted. You go in with the expectation that things will be well, but you basically have to keep your eye open until you cross that line. But we are very, very positive.
Some elections in the past have been clear as to what the question is, but it looks like this election is very confusing. So there's an economy issue.
Okay.
There's the whole, some people say it's a referendum on Akufo-Addo.
Okay.
There's the free SHS discussion, preserve it or not.
Okay.
Then there's the candidates and whether they can be trusted.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure what's the central thrust. And when I look at your campaign messages as well, some of them focus on John Mahama, some focus on Bawumia, some talk about the economy, lack of jobs. So it seems like there's a whole mixed bag, and there isn't one central theme driving the election. Is that the same impression you get?
I think fundamentally and essentially it's always down to economy. Because economy is what it is that affects people most directly. Especially we're talking about a young population. And, you know, Africa, generally the population is young. And as far as their young population is concerned, issues of unemployment, which is an economic situation. People tend to make it look as a social, but it's an economic situation. When an economy is expanding, when opportunities abound, employment becomes better. So that issue about the lack of employment and also the hope that is affecting young people is one that is directly anchored on the economy. So the economy remains essential. Economy also because Ben, it's been 8 years of real economic difficulty. And this is not just affecting what you call the lower income bracket, it's actually affecting the middle class as well. I mean, the kind of erosion that's happening in the real incomes of the people, whether you are working or not working, it's been massive. And this has been so palpable that for the first time in our history, even pensioners have had the receiving end of the difficulty. And some of these are coming even from the previous 4 years. I mean, the banking crisis, I mean, the shutdown of banks, I mean, the loss of job, the microfinances and closure, and how people lost job, and so on. So these are accumulating effect. And of course, the worst part of it has been the debt, the strangulating debt, and the effect it's had on the currency, on inflation, on general.
So you think the economy is the driving theme for voters?
Economy is number one. It's always number one. Of course, tied to that economy is the issue of character. Because there again also, as far as this particular election is concerned, is a situation where you're having a candidate on the NPP who is trying very hard to distance himself from the difficulties and at the same time trying to take advantage of the limited success. So you see a real conundrum here. He's not got the courage to own up to the problem and say, listen, this has been me. I've been part of this driving and the processes I own it. I'm responsible. No, I'm not responsible for the minuses, but the positive ones, you know what? It's my contribution. It's my policy.
But is that not how all of you do?
No.
Politicians, is that not all of you? Is that, how different is that?
We've seen Prof. Mills as vice president. We've seen John Mahama as vice president. They never run away from the collective situation. But here is a candidate who actually thinks he's smart, who is trying to play the country and pretending he's not part of the difficulty, but he wants to take advantage of what you call the pluses. And that speaks to character. It tells you that this is an individual who is simply desperate, who will do anything for power, who will lie if he has to, convenient lies and so on. So I say the issue of character becomes important. I think the free SHS is a very convenient thing that the MPP has just, I think their research shows to them that they have no chance except they somehow put everything on free SHS. So they try to smuggle free SHS into the conversation and also dependent and anchor their whole free SHS conversation on lies. Lie being that NDC is going to cancel it. Meanwhile, every step of the way, we have had opportunity to tell this country, even from 2020, that what we intend to do is to have a comprehensive review in order to be able to address challenges while maintaining the good part of free SHS. So you can see, if your whole campaign is anchored on the deception of the people, that NDC is coming to cancel free SHS, this free SHS they are putting into this conversation is not really the center of the matter. The real thing is an economic thing.
Globally, there have been about 7 elections, and there's a general anti-incumbency sentiment. So apart from India, almost all the elections that have been held in the past 18 months have been won by oppositions. There's Mexico, there's US, there's a lot of them. Now, that seems to be a wave that may favor you. But there's also a view that it's also a tiredness against politics as usual, which is why people like Alan and Cheddar seem to be on the register more strongly than previous smaller parties. Does your party suffer from that fatigue where people are tired, not just of the government, but basically of politicians? And therefore, if somebody comes across as a new face, a new force, non-political, so even some people like Trump in 2016, he's not necessarily seen as part of establishment. In your campaigns, do you suffer from that, this anti-establishment, anti-politician feeling that is sweeping the world?
I mean, let's say it this way, that generally cynicism in politics is nothing new. I mean, maybe Ben, you don't recall, but I remember even as early as 1996, I started hearing of cynicism. Where, for example, the 4 years of Rawlings as a constitutional ruler, there were complaints about, we expected this, that has not been done, the other has not been done. Politicians, can we really trust you? That kind of cynicism has been there. It's become much more pronounced lately because the truth, a lot of people who were not necessarily very partisan put a lot of hope in Nana Akufo-Addo. Because Nana Akufo-Addo really, really hyped it, made it look like, a massive transformation was going to happen in this country in 18 years. Transform this country into a developing country. Made it look like it's an easy job. Bawumia made it look like the economy is just easy peasy. We can solve the issue of city depreciation quickly. All the roads can be done. We don't need to borrow and stuff like that. So people had massive expectation. Now with all this crash expectation, automatically people start to feel like, oh wow, if these guys that we trusted so much can be this disappointing, that means all politicians are not to be trusted. But listen, the real fundamental issue of trustworthiness, I'm not saying NDC we are angels, but compared to the kind of massive disappointment, the broken promises that we've seen over the last 8 years, we don't fall in that. So it's true that to understand the young people feel as if the older, let's say the bigger parties have not always been able to deliver. But if you're checking, especially both internal and external polls, even though Cheddar and to understand Alan Chiramanteng may naturally have some kind of sentiment. The broad sentiment is asking for change, and change in an established political party that have got the structures through the country, that have got experience in government, that have been able to deliver something on the back of that can continue. So I think that experience of John Mahama and also the NDC having been there, and of course 8 years of having learned as well to be able to do things better and to be able to do some of the things that we didn't do and do it differently, I think will go for John Mahama and for the NDC.
Well, the point of view tonight is talking to three different people. I'm starting with Fifi Kwete, who is the General Secretary of the NDC. Now we have a former General Secretary of the MPP, who's a key member of the Bawumia campaign. And he's back in town, and when he comes to town, he has to go and report what he's been doing. So, Kwabena J. Japon is joining us. Kwabena, good to have you.
It's a pleasure.
How are you?
It's a pleasure. I'm very good.
I was telling Fifi Kwete that 3 days for election, he didn't look tired. You also look pretty okay. You guys, how do you do it?
I think the important thing is you have to enjoy what you do. You work hard for your party.
Yeah.
You feel that parties are vehicles to serve your country. It is not a life and death matter. I think the NDC and the MPP have had time in opposition and time in government. So that's why I want everybody to be relaxed.
You know each other too well.
The people should take it easy. I remember when I delivered my solidarity message in 2015 as General Secretary. I said, these are the two parties that are likely to run the country for the foreseeable future. So how we treat ourselves, how we conduct affairs, you know, it would enlighten or create more confusion in the electorate. So I think it's important that we send positive messages around. It's time for everybody to go and express their opinion as to who they favor to be president, who they can invest political authority or their future in.
You guys tell us every election is different. And I don't want to start from 92, but it seems to me as if at least from 2012 to 2016, these are three distinctly different elections. For you as the MPP, again, correct me if I'm wrong, this looks like the most difficult, and I'll explain. 2012, you were in opposition. Okay, you had lost another election in 2008. You were in opposition against a party that was in its sort of first four years. So it was going to be difficult. 2016, 8-year opposition, you swept to victory massively. And then, of course, 2020, you held your own. So, but how different is this 2024 one?
Two things. I think our candidate is a unique candidate. First time in the history of this country, and especially for us, our political tradition, to elect a northern Muslim as our leader. You know, and this is the propaganda tool that our friends of the NDC, they have used since 1992. You know, try to stereotype us and pigeonhole the MPP as an Asante party, not even an Akan party sometimes, and made us very difficult to campaign in certain parts of our country. So as you can see from your map, we are locked up in the middle belt in this country. And this shows that our party is not an Akan party, that it doesn't matter whether you are Ewe or you are Nzima or Mamprusi or Dagumba, it does not matter. If the electorate feel that you have the oomph to be able to lead them, that they can trust you with their future, they will do so. And I think it's based on the record of Dr. Bawumia. He has exhibited such finesse, you know, interpersonal skills. He's been a nice person. He's very humble, very respectful. Even the way he conducted himself immediately after the election, visiting everybody, every one of us, cobbling together.
The primaries.
Yes, the coalition. So there's reasonable harmony in the party. And you talked about we swept 2016 because we had a harmonious internal primary. And I think by and large, this year's primary have been reasonably harmonious. Only a few hot spots here and there. And so anytime we have such primaries, we are likely to win the parliamentary election. And then the presidency comes as a bonus. So the fact that he's going to be able to eat into the core support of the NDC, you know,
it's a strong advantage for him.
A strong advantage for him. So we are now fighting the NDC on their turf. Places where Bono East, which were no-go areas. I mean, I think we will claim some seats there. I do believe we'll do better in the north. We'll beat them in the north.
So your non-traditional, the places you've not been doing well, you believe you will get it into their advantage there.
We'll do better.
But will you hold your stronghold?
That's for certain. That's for certain. We'll hold our stronghold on the record that we have displayed over the last 8 years. So we are very confident. elections in this country are always going to be a close call because these are two big parties. It's historic. The UP tradition, now the NPP, is the CPP that has been taken over by the NDC, unfortunately, you know, and so that's what it is. So I've always said, from my political experience, the NDC is always guaranteed 44-45% core support. The MPP, 47-48 core support.
You give yourself like a 3 percentage point advantage.
And you can see all the...
Actually, the graph will show that.
I don't like polls, but whichever way you look at it, you would see that. And we always need 3-4% to travel.
Yeah, there's a residual advantage.
Yeah.
So when they win, it's narrower.
That's
when
right.
you win, it's bigger.
It's bigger.
Yeah.
And so it is the apathy sometimes in the internal party process that really works against us. I mean, in 2008, we had been empowered. Mr. Kufuor had delivered quite reasonably, but people had become solely-headed, complacent, fighting over parliamentary positions. Several parliamentary candidates, you know, and it cost us the election because Nanado was leading Professor Mills by 103,000 votes in the first round, mind you. But because the parliamentary election had been lopsided, about 7-8 parliamentary candidates who were favorable to us, but we couldn't count them as our candidates. And so the propaganda that, look, they won the parliamentary election at the presidency, I think it caught a bit of fire, and we lost marginally. I mean, our friends in Nigeria
it was very close.
Who called me and said, Kwabena, so we can't add 23,000?
Ghana is not like that.
I said, in Ghana, we don't do things like that. And that's why we want to assure everyone that we are not the party that steals elections or, you know, will strong-arm people. We want to have a decent election. Our tradition is the tradition that can be credited for the electoral reform in this country, starting from 93 up to date. And I think progressively, elections have become better. And now with the media,
it's more transparent.
I have been impressed, Bernard, with the sophistication of the media, the brutal competition.
We're also growing.
You are competing more than the political parties.
There's a final point before we go to the map. Globally, there seems to be an anti-incumbency sentiment. Let me explain. After the 2022 financial crisis, a lot of governments have fallen. So US, UK, Senegal, Brazil, Mexico, apart from India, most incumbents are falling, and a lot of people attribute it to the inflation of 2022, hard cost of. So basically, people are angry with governments.
The global crunch.
Yes, and they are punishing governments.
Incumbents.
So it's a global wave. You are aware of this.
That is why you have to give Dr. Bawumia so much credit, because we ourselves, I mean, there's not every detail I can give you, but we know where we stood in February, and I can tell you, he has been grinding the ground. He put boots on the ground, stepped all the 276 constituencies.
All 276.
Worked very hard, delivered, spread across stakeholder engagements, youth connect, community connect, going into the markets, visiting people in their homes. This has been the most elaborate election campaign I have seen. I've worked with the Professor.
And that's coming from you.
That's right.
You're serious. This is the most elaborate.
Yes. And
by elaborate, you mean what?
I mean, it's been well articulated, prosecuted, according to plan.
Wow.
Day by day, extracting those that he has to come back to Accra for official business. Mind you, he's still the vice president. So
mixing all of that.
And if you look at the fact that he was elected November 4th, some clear, about 7-8 clear months after his main opponent, John Mahama.
So today's actually a year.
Yeah.
Today's 4 December, right? So a year since he was.
No, it's a year and a month.
A year and a month. Yeah, November. Yeah, a year and a month.
And I'm saying that John Mahama had a leeway of about 8 months. And Bawumia could organize his campaign so meticulously, have a first round visiting all the 16 regional capitals, and no presidential candidate has organized stakeholder meetings, which brought together the clergy, the Muslims, the Christians, the traditional religion, the chiefs, the Zongo chiefs and all that, artisans, teachers, nurses, tailors, you know, miners, everywhere, farmers. And that he listened to them before he started his own program. And so he delivered his manifesto earlier and then adored his running mate. So it shows somebody who is prepared to govern. He's more serious, although he's in government. He didn't say he was going to sit on his incumbency. He recognizes what you have said, that incumbents had been punished across the world because of the crunch. And I think that's what has endeared him to the people. his just appetite for hard work. Appetite.
It's been a quite grueling. I was surprised to hear 3 years ago he was back in Ashanti Village. I was like,
No, because there were some 2 constituencies that we missed.
Okay.
And then 3 in Volta because he's a vice president. There was an
So
emergency.
you had to make up
to
for
leave
that.
It. Yes. So we had
So
to
you
come
combined OT, Eastern and Ashanti in one?
Because we had
Oh
the
God.
Koforidia area, the new job in North and South had not been touched. We had done all of that, and then a front plane. So he up there, did it all. And the vitality that he's shown, the energy, it has recreated the enthusiasm of the party base. So that apathy that, has disappeared. Everybody is so energized, and people are now focused and they are determined to roll out there, come out and vote come Saturday.
He spent 32 days or so in Ashanti, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think 3 weeks.
No, because people forget that Ashanti is not Kumasi. And there are 47 constituencies. I was with him throughout, and we're doing 3 constituencies in a day. If you do 3, you need 16 regions.
21.
You need 16 days to be able to do 48. There were a few that we did 4 in one day, and speaking engagements, so he's really worked hard. And I believe that hard work will pay.
Your opponent, I spoke to him, he says MPP usually does Ashanti engineering. When I showed him the Ashanti map, and then the fact that Bawumia spent a lot of time there, it's almost like you realize that across the country there isn't much support, and therefore you're putting a lot of energy in Ashanti. What's your response to that?
They got it wrong. I've heard them say, why is he spending 15 days? It was a constituency-based campaign.
Okay.
He wanted to treat the 276 constituencies equally.
Okay.
You could listen to what he was saying. He wants a broad-based campaign, and that's what he wanted to offer everyone time. It doesn't matter whether it's a whole central where we don't normally do too well, or a Bantama. He treated Ghana as the same. And I think it is very good. Because
is that a good idea?
It's a good idea. He's had the time, the energy, the strength, the verve to be able to do that. And Ghanaians want a leader who has vitality, who has energy, who can energize the base and lead by example and show an appetite for hard work. It's very important. His public-spirited nature and his empathy for the underprivileged and the people with disabilities and the policies that he has outlined has touched various segments of society. Okay. So we are very confident.
Final point before we go to the map. As a communicator, some people think sometimes it's good to have one central theme.
Yes.
I noticed because he's talking about different things. So preserve free SHS, digitalization, and my integrity as a person. So there are different touch points.
That's right.
Sometimes you are not really sure what the key thrust, because as I said, because there's a global anti-incumbency feeling, opposition doesn't have too much work to do than to simply say the current person is the same as those who cause all the problems for you.
That's right.
But for you, how have you been able to craft the key message?
Research shows that people vote for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
So yes, sometimes it may be good on a core message.
Yeah.
But these are exceptional circumstances.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, he has a central theme about focusing on agriculture and looking at the value chain. So he talks about support for agriculture, creating these district agri-mechanization centers as common user facilities to support commercialization of farming and also more technological advanced farms. And then looking at the tree crops, like rubber, like cashew, like shea nut, like mango, like palm, and treating it the way we treated cocoa. You understand? So those are messages that he took across, especially in the farming areas. Really went hard on that. So every sector of the society had something to bite on. And that's what makes his message so attractive. And people trust him. They believe that, one, he hasn't had the opportunity to be president. John Mahama has had his opportunity, didn't handle it, was kicked out in a historically big vote. And he hasn't had the opportunity. And I do believe that, yes, it's good politics for the NDC to heap everything on Dr. Bawumia. But John Mahama knows better than most the difference between being a vice president and a president. There's a sea of difference. You understand? And I believe that even if Nanado, the Constitution has allowed him to have another term, there will be dramatic changes to what he has done over the last 2 years. Yes, he's built a strong foundation, but there are areas that Dr. Bawumia wants to change. Imposing order and discipline in financial management, value for money for government procurement, slashing the size of government. Let people know that he wants to lead by example. When he says we should tighten our belt, I was looking at 54 ministers. He says 50. I still disagree with him on that one, but he's the boss. You know, so he's going to be significantly different.
Okay.
You know, when he talks about restoring professionalism and meritocracy to the public services especially. There are a lot of state entities, especially the technical ones, that will do with less political tinkering. You understand? People grow in the job, they have the institutional knowledge, and although the Constitution allows the president to appoint the top, sometimes we've gone down to second level and sometimes even...
It's too much.
It's too much. And we all realize that it's not the best for our country. And those are things that...
So he wants to define himself.
Yes.
Even though he was Nanado's vice president,
number two,
he believes that he can carve a niche for himself.
That's right. That's why he talks about leading us in a new chapter. I spoke about a new dawn. I think a new chapter is quite like a new dawn.
We'll take a break. When we come back, just do a quick walk around the country in terms of the changing electoral map of the country. We're still on the point of view. Tonight, my guest is the General Secretary of the NDC. They've almost finished campaigning. The presidential candidates in Ashanti region, they are doing a big rally in Accra on Thursday. MPP is doing the same thing. So essentially, I think that the first question is, Ghana's electoral map has changed. And I'll show you something which I know you already know, but I think people will need to see this. So in 2012, when we looked at the electoral map of Ghana, where green is for NDC, you were a very powerful party, Upper East, Upper West, all the way down here. The only inroads MPP had were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blue. And then, of course, their strength is down here. All right? But from 2016, something interesting began to happen where you have the blue is getting more. From 6, it's about 12 now. And then, of course, the green is still here, but even Upper East, Upper West had a couple of blues, right? And the whole of the South, it's like the country was smashed by the MPP. The latest version of this is where we are today, 2020, where even though you sort of reclaim this green here, the blues have this, in fact, some of them become deeper. So obviously, there's something happening there, which is different from what was there 10 years ago. And this is still a mixed bag. So there's a view that, and then if you look at these slides, it's narrowing, right? But they seem to have a bigger gap when they win. So it's almost like they have some residual advantage, even though it's close election. Is this how you see it? And will this trend sort of inform what you're expecting for this year?
All right. I mean, very good analysis. What I would say, though, is that I'm sure if you do that historical analysis that you've done, you will notice, for instance, that between 92 to 2000, the coloring was different. Between 2000 up to towards 2004, the coloring changed. 2008 was just marginal, so you won't see too much. But 2012, you see, that's where you saw the accentuation in terms of how the green got more in 2012. Now, 2016, you understand, there was such a tsunami because it was quite a difficult election for the NDC. So you saw that happen the way it did. In 2024, clearly there was an improvement on our part, but still the incremental advantage was there, so you will still see quite a lot of that blow. In 2024, it will change. It will change a number of two things. One, a lot of people who are not necessarily very partisan are going to be breaking more for us rather than them. That is critical. A lot of that young generation that have seen 8 years of difficulty and are not necessarily aligned are going to make a move for change. That's normally happen every 8 years. But there is another dimension that I would just say that we keep close to our chest. NPP has done a lot of things, not necessarily because it's been greatly organic. They've done a lot of what we call election engineering. Election engineering. And they do a lot of that, especially in Ashanti region. And you will be seeing that Ashanti is going to be a different picture because we are making sure this time around we place serious attention to the engineering that they do, especially in Ashanti, in order to ensure that we hold that to a minimum. We cannot completely eliminate the engineering they do, but we know we'll be able to drastically deal with that. So it's going to be, battle is going to be in Ashanti, and the numbers in Ashanti will significantly show that going forward, because we don't intend it to just be for this election. We want it to become a consistent feature that in Ashanti we become much more competitive. And the way to do it is not simply an organic situation, it's because MPP, I don't know whether you recall, but in the first 2 elections in our country, MPP actually got only 1 region that they won, only Ashanti. The remaining 9 regions out of 10 broke for the NDC in both 92, 96. So MPP has historically known that if they need to do anything, they need to maximize Ashanti. And to their credit, they did the maximization. And that maximization is not just electoral, it also has been a lot of engineering.
So from 96 to 2020, 65 being the lowest for 96, 79.89.
You're talking now about what?
MPP in Ashanti.
In Ashanti, sure.
Since you mentioned Ashanti.
Exactly.
So I'm just discussing that they have an average of above 70 because 65 was their lowest in 96. Kufuor's first term, almost 80. It's been hovering around 74, 70, 75, 72. You've been hovering from a high of 32, a low of 20, 26, 28 in 2012, 26 in 2020. So what's your expectation, say, for this year, realistically?
I'm not going to mention numbers, but I'm going to tell you that we are going to, that engineering aspect, because there's a lot of engineering aspect that's happening in Ashanti.
I don't understand political engineering.
I mean, you should know.
Engineering.
Yeah, it's called ways and means. It does happen. Especially when that is the only place that you can realistically call a safe place for you. You want to do, and they do a lot of things going on. In fact, Ben, you have a little idea. In 2008 election, if you recall, in 2008 election, after the first round, when MPP got desperate and decided to go for broke in the second round, the place where the whole engineering happened was Ashanti. That's where the vote changes were happening. Where, for example, the same result that, for example, came from Bantama in that same second round, the previous day was a number. The following day, 30,000 was added to that number. Places where you were getting over 100% voter turnout. So that engineering historically has been known.
But Fifi, Eastern has also been interesting for them. So up 96, you won Eastern, but the trend has essentially been they get an average of 55 to 60, and you get below 40. So I can say, for example, in 2012, you had 42, they had 56. 2016, 62, 35. 2020, 60, 38. So it's almost like a 2/3, 1/3 kind of thing.
But the real thing for them is Ashanti. Ashanti is the big.
I consider that. But I'm saying that this is also a fairly comfortable stronghold because it's quite clear that they do very well here.
I know. I mean, I'm not discounting that at all. But as I said, even that was won by us in both 92, 96. Subsequently, they started doing better because clearly there's a certain affinity between the 2 regions, largely. But the things I'm saying we want to do in Ashanti is not limited to Ashanti. It's also to understand Eastern as well. So I'm saying that aspect, which is largely engineering, which we know has been largely the reason why they've done what they've got to do, is one that will be a
Is that why President Mahama has spent a lot of time in Ashanti? He's gone back there. In fact, as we speak, he's wrapping up his Ashanti country.
That's true. That's true. And that's not all. I mean, President Mahama clearly is doing what you call the big ticket thing. But a lot of granular work is being done.
I see.
In every polling station.
Let me ask you about swing regions for a change. And because I see that, yes, Eastern region is an Ashanti stronghold, but Fifi, Central region, for example, in 2020 was quite interesting because even though it broke for you parliamentary, on the presidential side, I need help here. On the presidential side, I mean, you won more seats than they did in Parliament in Central for 2020, but somehow Akufo-Addo won the region. Have you ever? How did that happen?
No, but you know what? I mean, normally in the first term of every president, you actually get both presidential increase and parliamentary increase.
Okay.
If you check, that's really historically that's what happened.
Everybody so 2004, so 96, 2004.
So Kufuor, for example, 2004 was stronger than 2000. Okay. Rawlings 96 improved over. But the first one to actually go against that trend is Nana Akufo-Addo. That itself was quite an indication. But then again, let me tell you the truth. I mean, even though politically it's not everything that's disclosed. I mean, the desperation to ensure that Akufo-Addo wins, ensure the engineering at the presidential level in 2020 was much more massive. So a lot of what you see there is not necessarily very organic. Lot of that desperation.
The reason it's interesting is that, Fifi, Western, Greater Accra, Central, and BA are the 4 swing regions.
Sure.
And apart from Greater Accra that you won in 2020, for presidential,
Sure.
they want Western, Central, and BA put together.
Sure.
So is that not concerning that? Because usually we use the swing regions as the mood of the nation.
Yeah.
Volta in the north generally NDC, Ashanti and Eastern generally MPP.
Yeah.
Then the 4 swing regions determine where we want to go.
Yeah.
They took 3 and you took 1.
Okay. But let me tell you where it changes. You see, the assumption is that we are operating on the base of 2024.
Okay.
But 2024 itself is not
No,
exactly
2020
a base.
as a base.
2020, exactly.
Yeah.
But 2020 is not really a base.
Why?
Why? Because what happened in 2020 is a completely different reality from the reality Ghanaians are facing at the moment. So if you are there, so if I were MPP, I would actually not
use 2020.
No, at all. Because the situational dynamics is totally different. That was a mistake, for example. It's a mistake I would say we made in 2016. Because we did that well in so many regions, including Central,
2012.
Western. When those regions had literally left us, we didn't even realize it because we're still banking on it.
Okay.
In a crucial, especially when you are in your second term and you have a new candidate who has been part of that whole, the running in government in 8 years, who after Akufo-Addo is exiting, if you continue just depending on 2020, then you literally are putting yourself in a difficulty.
Okay, let me end this segment with a question about the North. MPP,
Okay.
I think what I showed you earlier was very clear, that some way, somehow, in the past 3 electoral cycles, MPP's performance has done well. And you have done economics. The trend of MPP in the 3 North is going up from a low of 33 in 96 to 44.
Yeah.
This is Northern, Savannah, and North. You've come down from a high of 61 to 53. So, and this is over 2 decades.
Sure.
So clearly, the MPP is catching up in the North. And now
And
they have a candidate from the North. So there's an expectation that what used to be a comfortable place for NDC is now almost a swing region in terms of the gap. It's basically just 9. So I'm not talking about just last election.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to admit that they have done something in the North.
Yeah, but then look at that graph carefully again.
Yeah.
You notice that effectively it was at its highest in 92. Watch it.
For
the very first
for
one.
NDC.
I'm talking NDC here.
Yes.
92. Then it came down the following election. Effectively almost plateaued the following one.
Yeah.
Then saw a rise.
Yes.
The following one. Then you saw again.
Yes,
Almost. So then you see that it's not static. It changes based on dynamics. So if you saw, for example, 1990, can you point?
So this one?
2012. Where's 2012?
So this is 2012, 58. 2008 runoff is 60.
All right.
Then 2012 is 58.
All right. So I'm saying that it's not exactly what you call something that you call static. So different dynamics can change. I will tell you that it's something that we at the party level have taken note of. So therefore, the work that we've done in especially the original northern region, which is northern now, Savannah and northeast, have been very different from work we did in 2020 because we are quite aware.
But you
of the
admit
dynamics.
that the way the region is split, President Mahama is from Savannah, Vice President Bawumia is from northeast. So clearly, the north is what is left. So because generally people will tend to support where their candidate is from. So it looks like if Savannah goes NDC, northeast looks MPP. So north, then what is left of the north is now the battleground. True?
Not necessarily.
You don't think so?
Not necessarily at all. We are not in any way, letting go of Northeast. In fact, we believe that even in the very heart where Bawumia comes from, we are going to be competitive.
Even in Waliwali, Nalerigu, Yagaba Kubori.
We believe we are going to be competitive right there.
There's a view that NDC is confident in the presidential, but MPP has a plan for parliamentary. And some of them believe, and I'm sure my guest I will be speaking to will say this, that they are quite sure that they will pull a surprise in the parliamentary for you. Have you heard about that?
It's normal. It's normal that we will pick that. It's normal also that we will be able. Basically, we are not unaware of the fact that MPP definitely is hoping that they can do better in parliamentary. Yeah.
And looking at the history of this parliament, if you win the presidential and they win the parliamentary, that would be an interesting situation.
That would be. But then don't forget, when there is a backlash, when there's a backlash, it translates from presidential onto parliamentary. So for you to think that there is a rejection of 8 years of your governance, and in some way, somehow, you, the parliamentarians, are going to be spared, it doesn't work that easy. In 2016, when there was a backlash on us, saw exactly the effect on parliamentary. We had solid candidates who were literally surviving. They were surviving basically like what you call on very, very little margins. So their calculation I can appreciate, because clearly they are also hoping that resources that they are pumping at the parliamentary level will help them. But there's a general mood of the country. And that general mood does not make a difference between presidential and parliamentary. So we still confident that even at parliamentary level,
let's end with the election issues. So there have been a few issues with the EC. Some things have had to be reprinted. A few technical challenges. How confident are you that on Saturday the election will start? Because there was even a report over the week that some people were even saying the election may not come on and all of that. From your camp, are you certain that we are voting on Saturday? Are you sure that, because everything that's happening, your people have been part of it in terms of sending the ballots to the regions. 2-3 days to an election, do you think we are ready as a country?
We have no option, really, Ben. We have no option. And that is a bit of a sad thing to say. Because, the Jean Mensa Electoral Commission has, touted itself as having been what you call the best so far in our history. And the evidence doesn't show that they actually have been the best. Apart from the issues we have had with them, that had to do with not just their ability to really do this job very independently and do it on a neutral basis, as we have seen in the past with Fafarijan and also with Charlotte. We have questions with that about the composition of your leadership, even on that. There have been genuine issues about competences. To the point where, for the first time in our history, you've done what is special voting, and 2 big regions have had to be postponed, and they are going to be done tomorrow. So the hitches have been there, which shows clearly that they've not really been on top of the job. They've not done it well. But I think from what we see, election clearly will happen on Saturday.
You're confident you are winning?
Oh, definitely.
Fairly?
Definitely.
Do you foresee a second round?
Let's say it this way. We are confident that we are going to win by the first round.
You are confident
we expect that we are going to win by the first round. But at the end of the day, it's always left in the hands of the people of Ghana. And that's why I, together with the rest of the party, we continue telling Ghana, this clearly is a time for us to look at the 8 years that we've had and the need for there to be a change. And one of the main reasons why there is no change, not just for an economic purpose, but also for the need for a proper accountability. This country is dying for accountability. The people who have been in power for the last 8 years have absolutely done stuff that is important for a new government to come and put the searchlight on them and be able to examine in details, audit them in order to punish people who are due that punishment. And that punishment is not just due for MPP, but also to be a record so that NDC itself can use it as a benchmark to ensure that we do what is right.
I wish you well. Thank you, Fifi Kwete.
Thank you very much, and hopefully in the next few days, we'll be talking about Fifi Kwete, the General Secretary of the ruling party.
Ghanaians will decide, as he says, and time will tell. Thank you so much, Fifi Kwete.
Always a pleasure.
For talking to us. So that's all we have time for today's edition of the first part, actually. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'll be speaking to the other side. What do they make of the election? And then we'll speak to one of the referees to find out what they make of our preparation. Stay with us. So as I did with the NDC General Secretary, I want to speak to Kwame Japan about the electoral map of Ghana. And if you just tuned in, I'll just show you this quickly. I'm using 3 most recent elections just to make the point that in 2012, when NDC did very well, Upper East, Upper West, Savannah, North, all the way to Volta, very green. And MPP are just 6-7 sprinkles in the north, right? 1, 2, 3 down here in the Eastern Corridor, 3 here and 1 here. MPP's strength is Ashanti, Bono, Eastern. That's basically the strength in 2012. Then you come to 2016, which Kwame Japan calls the tsunami. And that tsunami was so serious that even in Upper West, there were some blues. The blues have now increased from 6 to about 8, 10-ish, right? And then the whole of the Bono side is gone, even some western inroads in the corners, right? So the country was really, really strong MPP. 2020 seems to have sort of come down the middle lane. And this is where we are with, the blues have sort of coalesced towards the northeastern side. NDC has reclaimed Upper East and Upper West. The Agash in the middle is still strong. A few roads in Bono for them as well. And then western to a few things. So Kabana, this is, what's my observation is that you've sort of strengthened up here.
Yeah.
And it's been deliberate.
Yes. And apart from that, now that we have a candidate from that area, that's his...
Oh, so this was not because of him. Some people attribute this to him, that he was running it from, I think, 2008.
From 2008.
So they said some of this is him.
Of course, you have to give him the credit for that. But I think now that he's on top of the ticket, he's more attractive to the North. There's no doubt at all about that. And again, I mean, he had a very interesting way of putting it. Look, the two major candidates are from the North. One can be there for only 4 years. He can be there possibly for 8 years. And the country is big. And when the North captures it, maybe the next time that the cycle returns, maybe some decent, interval. So I think most of them believe that if indeed you are going to look at the North, then they'd rather have put their chances on someone who can be there for 8 years than 4 years. So that is going to be strengthening us. And then if you look at all the areas that are green, even the strong areas that the NDC have in the blue areas, those are the areas of a lot of the Zongos where we do very badly. You understand?
So you think beyond the North, he has something to say about some of the greens?
Oh, yes.
Where settler communities have been, you think so?
Because they identify with him. He's one of them. He's also a minority. You understand? They identify with him. And apart from that, he has helped a lot. I think he's used his office as vice president in a very humane way. Mahmoud has been someone who's helped people, Christians and Muslims. Even my church, he touched my church when he visited the church. The kinds of sacrifices, the way he's shared what God has blessed him with in the Muslim community, in the Zongo communities, sponsoring people to medical education in Cuba and supporting some of the imams to have their pilgrimage to Mecca. He has done a lot of work. And as we go around, the chiefs and the clergy, they tell us, they give us testimony of the kind of support he has given people. And I think that will play very big.
Okay. But now let's talk about the Greater Accra.
Greater Accra.
Because, when I check the map, there's a map behind you, which you may not be able to see. It's now the largest region in terms of population.
That's correct.
I think it overtook Ashanti in 2020. So about 3.7 million. 13 of the 20 biggest
are here.
Now, the challenge is that this anti-incumbency thing, it tends to be strong in the capital city.
It's more pronounced.
Good. So even though the gap between the two parties was just 73,000 in 2020, there's a sense that NDC starts with an advantage in this region. And that if there are people turn out to vote and the incumbent supporters are apathetic, then the gap could be much bigger. What are your thoughts on Greater Accra?
That is a possible scenario, but I can tell you, with the work that Bawumia has done so far, and the delivery of projects to the coastals. I mean, Jamestown has had a new harbor. Nungwa, the landing sites in Mumford, across. This government has delivered a lot of work, Elmina and all that, and people feel it. You understand? And so I don't think the margin, if people take it for granted, we will do much better in Greater Accra than people think. And you know that he's also a minority. He's a Mampusi. He's not an Ashanti or an Akan.
So some of the anti-MPP sentiments may not necessarily be there. You
That's
think
right.
So?
And he would do much better in the Volta region as well.
You think so?
And there's a huge Volta contingent in Greater Accra, mind you.
Yes.
And they love Bawumia. You understand? So Greater Accra, yes, is always tough. It's hugely metropolitan. This is where the economy bites the most. People have to pay rent.
So you do admit that the anti-government sentiment in the region,
of course,
is strong.
How
do you see central?
But we have a strong base here.
Okay.
The Greater Accra, there's a strong base of the MPP, and our base. Once our base turns out, and I'm encouraging them.
You will not be walloped.
No, at all.
You will not be walloped in the region.
No, to be, if even they defeat us, to be marginal.
You don't. Yeah.
So I think Greater Accra is a place where nobody can dominate.
You notice your base is coalesced towards the western side.
That's right.
And then they
of course, but fortunately the Adans and the Seges don't have the population.
Yes. So you're right. The numbers are more in the middle.
That's right.
Yes.
In 2012, if you looked at the previous slideshow that you had, we used only 2 regions to virtually fight off the rest of the country.
Yes, you did.
So it's the population. So where we are strong, we are very strong. And in Greater Accra, we are very strong. And our people will turn out and vote. And if you add that to what Dr. Bawumia himself will be able to commandeer in the Ashamans of the world, the Nimas of the world, Accra New Town, and the Sukura, where he can also get in there. He's got support in there.
Central region baffled me a bit because the Akufo-Addo won the region, but the NDC got the parliamentary majority.
Because there was a lot of, and there's still, unfortunately, we're trying to talk to our people. There are a lot of internal problems in Central region. It's not been easy. But I think Dr. Bawumia has been able to lead them into some coalition of a sort. People are working together. They were probably, remember, a lot
That's the fact that his main opponent in the primaries is from there.
That's right.
That created some of those problems too.
And the overhang. People, forgetting about the fact that now he's the elected candidate, let's all work together for him. And sometimes, again, it's internal politics. So when people win, they over-celebrate. And it bruises the egos of some of the supporters, or the party people who may not have supported him. And it can, can lull them into a certain sense of apathy. But we've worked hard in this campaign. I do believe that in Central region, it's also another toss-up. But it's a region that, fortunately, our candidates this time around are very active, very young, very attractive, and they are local people. And I think that local affection will give us a good difference in the Central region.
Will you get the advantage in the Western region? And I ask this because
Western is
it's been you did your manifesto
in
launch there, but you know how the map works, right?
Western is always very tough.
Yes,
it's always very tough from time immemorial. But we will do well in the presidential and maybe win a few seats back with the parliament.
Because you did suffer parliamentary there.
Yes, we did because of the propaganda our friends used with the Galamsey issue. But now I think that going around, the miners don't see us as a threat to them because Dr. Bawumia's proposal is exciting. He says you get a geological survey to get people to be more serious and focused on where they mine, and it should not be just trial and error and destroying the environment. And it's not that he's against them, but he wants to make them millionaires, but in a right, sustainable way, so we don't destroy our forest reserves and our rivers. So I think that Western region, we've got some very decent, good candidates. Sometimes it's a selection of the candidates.
And that tends to affect the presidential.
That's
because
right.
if the candidate is not like...
There's a huge migrant community in Enche, Swaman. And we've tactically selected good candidates.
So you think that some of the residual advantages NDC gets...
it will not happen now because some of our candidates are also migrants. And you see, that's how we've been able to make Akontomra a strong place. Tete is a Krobo, but there's a big Krobo community there. You understand? So these things, sometimes you have to work it in a very subtle way, in a very decent way.
You are an election engineer, so let me come and wrap up with you and ask you, because you're an engineer who's been doing elections for a long time, General Secretary before this. Some people are saying this election will go into a second round and that type of thing. I know you have various scenarios, but would you be surprised if anybody won it in the first round? Not surprised.
In fact, I hope it doesn't. First, because the cost to the treasury is...
You don't want second round?
I don't. I don't.
You don't want second round?
And I think every Ghanaian by now knows that it is between Dr. Bawumia and John Dramani Mahama. And I do think that when they weigh them, they would give the balance of doubt to Dr. Bawumia. One, because you see, this election, the way it is, and the way the population is, if you look at the dynamics and the demographics, Mahmoud, the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has shown a certain deep knowledge of what it takes to move this country to a new era. A certain understanding of the global world, the technological movement that is happening. And he has already, as Vice President, championed a lot of major interventions that has changed the lives of Ghanaians. I mean, we may take it for granted, like mobile money interoperability. Today, you can sit here and do a lot of things on your phone that in many countries you cannot do. And that has impacted the lives of Ghanaians. He's restored Arabic teacher allowances, nursing allowances, teachers allowances. So people identify with him. So I'm very confident that the measures, and again, you see, he's someone who reaches into the future. When he talks about removing the credit, the cash economy and replacing it with the credit economy, some people don't understand it, but all over the world, Bernard, you see your friend in UK says, I've bought a house. It
Credit.
is-
They have good credit.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the kind of system we need to build. He has a dream. It may not be achievable even in his first term, but the dream is that all over the world, when you have a job, you should be given an opportunity to enjoy the facilities and use your working life of about 30 years to pay it down. You know, that reduces corruption. People are not under pressure to go and do something untoward at the workplace to buy a plot or a house. If he has a car, he can pay, you know, over a 6-year period. That the fact that he brings this kind of idea shows that he's somebody who is intellectually deep.
Wow.
You know, he's intellectually deep, and I think when you place them, you realize that this is someone.
I wanted a headline from you, but you said something that it would be a good headline. You said you wouldn't be surprised if there's a second round, but you hope not.
No, yes.
So you are not putting all your eggs in one basket.
No. See, something has happened which is we should look at. For the first time in elections in this country, the smaller parties have not featured.
Not that much.
No,
But they've actually been declining in their numbers.
Yeah.
Some even say this year they're more prominent because they're doing TV adverts. because now they've done. I've seen Kofi Apalo, I've seen Ayariga, I've seen Alan, and I've seen Cheddar do TV adverts.
Yes, but I'm just saying that if you look at their work on the ground, boots on the ground,
Yes.
you
It's not
can
as-
see everybody knows that you don't need to waste your vote. It has to be one of the two. And I believe the majority will trust their future, invest their future in Dr. Bawumia.
I hope to talk to you soon. Hopefully
When we
after a
are
first round.
smiling.
Whatever happens, Ghana wins.
Oh, of course.
So for us,
Definitely. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I want to encourage everybody. It's not life and death.
Yes.
The NDC has been in power before. We have been in power before. We are in power, although I have not been in power for 8 years.
Thank you, Governor. Good to see you. Good luck.
It's
Good
a
luck
pleasure.
to you.
It's a pleasure.
We'll be right back and speak to the head of the UN agencies in Ghana, Charles Abani, for his view as an observer. Stay with us.